everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color. I'm Jed Toffer. Thanks for listening. You know, my wife Vicki and I have owned and operated our photography studio, V Gallery, for 20 years now. White House has been our lab for the last 16 of those years, and we could not be happier. White House is a family-run business, just like ours. If you haven't already, check them out at whcc.com. And if you want to drop me a line, feel free to email me at jed@whcc.com. If there's one thing I've learned over the last 20 years, it's that business in general, and our little photography industry in particular, is all about relationships. The way we interact with our clients is of utmost importance. And I think the way we act with the ones we love is a mirror image of this. Because authenticity is so important in a genuine relationship, I think it only follows that we should, and in fact, we will, treat our clients like we treat the most important people in our lives. Paul and Kristin Privette are doing this as good as anyone. They're currently in the process of incorporating something they've been taught by Paul's parents into their business. It's called the blessing. It's a beautiful concept, and I can tell you from experience, it's extremely worth trying with the ones you love the most. Tell me who you are and where you're from and what you do and all the goodies.
Well, we are Paul and Kristin Privette. We're from Gainesville, Florida. We have 3 boys, and our 4th boy is coming in June.
We have been part of the photography industry now for going on 11 years. We started out as primarily wedding photographers and still love that side of our business very much. But within the last few years, we've shifted a little bit and are spending a little bit more time focusing on the portrait side of our business.
Why the shift?
That's a great question.
They look at each other and pause.
There's a lot tied up into that answer. I would say our boys are definitely part of that answer.
Yes.
The older that they get, the more weekends we want to be at home.
Right.
But we don't ever see ourselves not photographing weddings,
right,
because as artists, we truly, truly love it. But we also had an amazing opportunity within the last couple years. We found an Allison. Okay. She's a thing. Everyone needs an Allison.
Everyone needs one.
Mm-hmm. But we found an Allison, and Allison is one of those people that we trust as an artist, but also with how she treats our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also found a Sally, Sally is Paul's younger sister. Sally's been working with us part-time almost since the very beginning, but now circumstances in her life are just where she can work with us more on a full-time basis. And Sally and Allison are photographing weddings under the Footstone brand, and they're rocking it. So it's just allowed Paul and I to transition.
Even better.
And it's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the family's the big piece, right? Absolutely. Your boys are getting older, and you have a 4th one? You're going to have 4 boys?
4 boys. I told Paul I get a girl dog, and he said no. How do you say no?
Well, I know how he would say no. We won't even go there, because I'll get hate mail if I talk about that too much. My wife we have a girl dog.
Okay.
Yeah, she's and everybody loves her.
Okay.
Except for me. and guess who she loves the most? She loves me. She follows me around everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
And I just found out she vomited on my couch yesterday. Yeah, so I don't like that very much.
His face is turning red.
Dude, I get a little fired up. I just know. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's move on from
He's
dogs.
Sweating.
we went from beautiful little boys to dogs somehow. But that's what I kind of wanted to use as my segue into what we're talking about, because you guys, and I've thought about how I wanted to talk about this, and I kind of break it into 2 parts for myself. And there's the origin piece of it and what it is and how it came about and your story regarding it from that perspective. And then there is what you have done with that concept in your business. And there's all kinds of, they're related in all kinds of ways, and the meaning is very powerful on both sides, but they're also two different things, like the way that you handle this personally is one thing. And then the way that you adapt the concept for your business is still it's a beautiful thing. But you're more orchestrators of that because it's for other people.
Right.
And so before I keep talking so cryptically for all our listeners, I need you to explain to me what it is.
Okay. So many years ago when I was a child, my dad read a book called The Blessing. And the book kind of lays out this concept that goes back to Old Testament biblical times, where the father would give the blessing to the oldest, and in doing so really kind of spelled out their future. I mean, what the father said was the future of the child. And but the book talked through giving a blessing to a child. And so my dad started a tradition, a family tradition, where we would, on every birthday, the birthday child would sit in the middle on an ottoman or a stool or whatever we could find. And each member of the family, there are 8 kids in my family, but each member of the family would go around and first would say something that they like about that person in a character sense. And then once that went around, we'd go back around and everyone would pray a blessing over the child. The best that we knew how as children.
Right.
But it was very much focused on kind of talking about their future and the things that the characteristics in them that really made them who they are and made them unique.
Anybody that knows anything about prayer or has any experience with prayer knows that the prayers of a child are the best ones.
Yes,
Absolutely.
they are.
Every time.
Yes, they are.
Absolutely.
Anytime my child is willing to pray, I'm like, you make it happen, because
Yes.
Dad's really nervous and scared and doesn't know a lot of these people, and yours is going to be a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
So please do it.
Absolutely.
God is listening to that precious child.
Oh my goodness. This is a big deal for you. I wish people could see your face. What sort of effect did that have on your family? How did that play out over the years?
I kind of have to look at it from an interesting perspective, because it started when I was a child. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like I've always had it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've begun to realize that is incredibly unique.
Mm-hmm.
And not something that everybody gets.
No.
And so for me, it's become a burden.
Oh, explain that.
I've been given something that I believe everybody should have from somebody. And the thing that Kristen and I are trying to explore as we just keep peeling back layers and layers of what a blessing is there are people who physically cannot now get a blessing from a parent. So what does that mean? And when you go back to the basics of a blessing, even a biblical blessing, how it's laid out, the main points of it is you are telling someone what they're on this earth for. You're saying things that are built into them, that are unique to them, things in their future that maybe only they can accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about it is you can encourage somebody. You can tell somebody they did a good job with something, and that lasts for a while.
Yeah.
You get straight A's. Somebody says, hey, great job getting straight A's.
Yeah.
And that can last for a while. But when you speak the words of a blessing, meaning the words of future, the words of
Purpose.
purpose, in your life.
So is that the difference between a blessing and an encouragement, really?
I believe.
Like an affirmation and a blessing?
Right. I believe that that's the difference.
Like a blessing goes a step further.
Yes.
It's almost like there's like proclamation or declaration or prophecy to some degree. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
I'm throwing out some words.
I mean,
I'm throwing out some big words.
Some of those words get a little, might get some people fired up.
They get a little spooky even to me hearing myself say it. But I get this feeling that it's a bigger deal than just saying, "Hey, buddy, good job."
Yes.
Well, and encouragement often follows something that you've accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And we all want to be praised and should be praised for our accomplishments.
I think I see where you're going.
But when we don't accomplish, are we still valuable?
Okay.
When we don't achieve what we feel like we should have and no encouragement comes,
Right.
what do we do with that?
So a blessing isn't necessarily any sort of result of an accomplishment or an achievement.
It is simply because you have been given these gifts
Right.
for a purpose
Right.
and you have value. And there's someone or many someones in this world that need what only you can give them.
Right. So this is a silly question maybe in that vein, but you're doing this with your boys.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And do the parents get it too? Like on your birthday, do you get to sit in the middle?
So my family was very different.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I have an absolute fantastic family. But this is different. What Malcolm Privette did for his children.
You should tell the story of the first blessing that you encountered in my family.
Right. So my family, we're just kind of sometimes people a few words, especially when it gets to a real emotional level.
Right.
I was maybe 18. Paul and I met very young. I was, moved away from small town Florida to the big town of Gainesville, Florida.
Right. Big city.
Met this cute kid and started hanging out with his family. And obviously we had, been friends. If you want to call it dating, you can call it dating. But for a little while before I experienced my first blessing. So it was Joshua, his youngest brother. And there's almost a 20-year age difference between the oldest and the youngest.
Okay.
So he was a little guy. He's right about 5 years old.
Oh, that's my son's age.
And here are all the siblings. Some of them were married at the time. So the wives too. We're all in this big room. And Joshua gets plopped down in this, leather ottoman in the middle of the room. And we're circling around him. And I'm kind of hanging back because I'm not really sure what's about to happen.
You didn't know?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm like, okay.
Thought it was maybe better not to mention it. Just let it happen,
Right.
Paul likes to throw me in situations like that. Let's just see what she does.
Let's just see how this plays out.
So I'm sitting back and I'm watching this unfold, and people his siblings start saying these things that most people just don't hear or don't know how to say to someone. And I am scared to death that I'm going to have to say something. I mean, I'm like, how can I hide?
Right.
And thankfully, they were very gracious and did not. I did not have to.
You didn't have to
say
go.
anything out loud. I did not have to stand up and pray out loud. I mean,
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
For me, terrifying.
It's like making my chest tight thinking about it, right? But I will never forget. Because I saw it. This was not a normal thing in my life. And I just was overcome with what they were speaking into this little boy's life. And you saw it. You saw him get larger, and you saw him soak it in.
Yeah, there's a physical manifestation.
It absolutely was a physical response.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happened when I saw my first blessing was Dee Privette put her hands on Joshua, because they speak a blessing, and then they go around and they put their hand on that person and they pray a blessing over their lives. So this takes a little while to do. But Dee Privette stood up and she put her hand on her little boy. And she prayed for his future wife. And Paul and I weren't engaged at the time, married at the time, but I think both of us kind of knew, And I just realized, like, oh my gosh, this family has been praying for me my entire life.
I can't imagine. And Paul, it's true. They did.
They did.
Year after year.
Year after year.
I'm thinking about, put myself in the position. And one thing that strikes me as we all sit here and bawl like babies, not that that's a bad thing. You're learning how to give a blessing bigger than an affirmation, more than an encouragement. But what also strikes me that I think a lot of people, more and more even, have trouble with is receiving.
Yes.
Does that resonate? Like little Joshua, 5 years old, and it's hitting me because I picture my little fella. He's 5. He turns 6 on Thursday, so his birthday's coming up.
Jed,
And I'm coming home
exactly why we're
tomorrow,
sitting here right
and
now.
then Thursday, I'm going to put him on that ottoman, and I'm going to do this, and it's freaking me out right now a little bit. It really is. But I have, in my experience, because I've been parts of different self-help groups and whatnot, where you sit around with a bunch of people and you all talk about this, that, and the other. And sometimes there's a spiritual element, sometimes there's not, so I've seen both. But what always strikes me every time is how difficult, and many times more difficult, for a person to receive something than it is for them to give. Like someone can compliment someone or speak into them even, but then when they're the ones sitting in the middle, it's really hard for them to receive it. And this is generally like when they're, you're in their 20s or your 30s or your 40s, or in my dad's case, his 60s, when we did this with him. It was like he couldn't take it. He didn't even know what to do with it. And there is nothing to do with it. You just receive it, right? But it's striking me how important it's going to be for Joshua in particular, because that's who we're talking about specifically, and he's much older now, I assume. But how big of a deal it was for him as a little fella to learn how to receive that.
Right.
Because I think it flies in the face of like the biggest things in our life that bring us down, like fear and shame and self-hatred and all the things that are destructive, right? Yeah. But to be able to receive that blessing, you kind of said it earlier, you have it. Yes. Now, an encouragement you have for a little while, but a blessing is what I'm picking up from you guys. You always have,
yes,
and can go back to.
Yes.
That's the piece that's really striking me here and making me think more and more about my little boy. I don't know how I'm going to edit this at the end of the day, but I'm just going to keep talking and then I'll figure it out later. How then, tell me now how it transitioned into your business with to be able to, I don't know, offer this or expose this or bring this to your clients.
It's been a journey. I'll say that. We were actually in Atlanta a couple years ago. 3 years ago now.
She knows.
We thought it was 2. And we're like, oh, wait, no, it's been 3 years since this happened.
That happens. That's how it goes.
But we spoke at PPA and had a great, experience. And one night we were sitting in a restaurant under market lights, just the two of us. It was late, and we just started talking and talking through our business and beyond what are the numbers, and to more of what are we really doing.
You got to purpose. you got past profit and you got to purpose.
Purpose is a scary thing to start exploring.
Well, and to be specific, we were up here teaching a 2-day workshop where we sat with a small group of photographers who just were staring at us, some of them with just desperation, almost like, give me hope that this is possible. And one of them, it was two women who were working together. I mean, they were about to lose their studio.
Yeah.
And another of them, her mother had died in a car accident days before this workshop. And she and her mother were supposed to go into business together.
Oh, my word.
And so she's like still there, and she said to us, like, I just know my mom thought I could do this. She wanted me to do this.
Oh, wow.
And, so when you teach and you really get to know who's in that audience, I mean, we were overcome with what are we doing? Like, there's got to talk about a burden for trying to give something, anything, to these photographers. So it put us in that place. It set us up for a very different kind of conversation that night. It wasn't just, how did Footstone do?
Right.
Are we okay? What are we doing next year? It was a whole nother level of thought.
And you thought of this.
Well, so, I'll try to make this as concise as possible, because I'm sure you can imagine conversations like this can go in circles, because there's so much on your mind and your heart, and you're just, it's all spinning, like, what are we doing? Why are we even photographers? Yeah. Is this a sustainable career? Are we doing good by our clients? Should we, there's just so much out there that, everyone listening has had those feelings of just, what is it all meant to be, and why, and what's next? And I had this project on my heart, like a personal project on my heart that was women focused, more encouraging and empowering women. And I know a lot of female photographers really have that same, just passion for making women feel beautiful. We're artists. So I was talking about, like, well, I feel like I've had this project on my heart for a long time, but it's just not making sense. And so that led us to the conversation of just giving in maybe more ways than just photography. And if you know Paul and I well, or, you spend enough time with us, I'm the talker typically, and, Paul kind of sits back always with, like, what he's doing exactly right now with his arms crossed, and he's taking it all in.
Yeah.
And then he comes out after minutes and minutes of silence and delivers the, like, most epic, like, one-liner that just changes your life, right?
I love it.
Yeah,
right. We're waiting, Paul.
Right.
What's coming?
But this night was different, actually. That, I said my little, thing, shared my little, like, what's going on with this project that I feel like I have in my heart, but it's not coming to fruition. It's not making sense yet. And then Paul just starts. It was, I shut up. And it's funny because I just don't usually do that, but this conversation was different. And Paul starts just, I could see his mind spinning and processing, and, and I look back, and a lot of what he was saying was, he was processing, okay, well, what is our purpose?
Yeah.
Wait a second. I know I have purpose because I've been told since I was a child. That I have value and I have purpose. And he knew that he was a photographer for a reason, because so much prayer has gone into where we are and what we're doing. And we are at least confident in that we are where we're supposed to be right now in our lives. And feel free to jump in at any time, but he's, God was working, right? I saw it live. Like, God was speaking, and Paul is processing, and he's like, it's got to be more than just photography. I'm not just a photographer just to take pictures of people. Like, what can I give that only I can give? What can these photographers that we just poured into and just desperately hope that they can come out successful, how can what do they have? Like they're special. Each of them are special. What do they have that make them special? And so Paul's, those are the kinds of words that are coming from him. And I don't think either one of us will ever forget this moment. But, like Paul said, we're sitting outside, downtown Atlanta under the twinkle lights. It's dark. It's late. We're so exhausted. We haven't slept in 48 hours or more. And then Paul stops. And we both look at each other, essentially right after, what can I give that nobody else can give? Why am I here as a photographer? And he stopped and he looked at me and we made direct eye contact. And we both at the exact time, I kid you not, said, it's the blessing.
And I think that just started our journey. It wasn't a light bulb moment to what we do next. It was a light bulb moment of, okay, this is our new direction. And so we started down that path, exploring how does that look in our business?
Right.
How can we share that?
How do you handle it then? Because it seems, so you both essentially I feel like you both feel as though it was like a calling almost, like this is what you're supposed to do type of thing, right?
Right.
How do you take it from the personal, intimate family piece and translate it into something that still retains those characteristics, and isn't cheapened by the business aspect or demeaned by the fact that it's now going to also be part of what you're doing business wise? Like, how do you avoid that?
That was a very good question.
Definitely part of the journey.
Yes.
Well, and maybe still is to some degree.
Absolutely.
Because that's, I see that as the challenge. Like, you're taking something that's tremendously meaningful and is really a big deal, and you're bringing it into a business setting where you want that to be the same for your clients, and it can and will be, right?
Yes.
And you're getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Bottom line. Which I think is totally great. I think that's fine, but you don't want it to lose any of its significance in the process, right? So what do you do to make it happen that way?
Well, I'll tell you kind of how the journey has gone then.
You're gonna have to wrap this up because we're talking 3 years of.
I mean, there was a lot of just talking and working things out, but one place we ended up that I'm very proud of, we developed a blessing session where we actually, for our sample
Reveal or
sample
launch,
books, I guess is the right term. We asked one of our friends who is a mother of 2 if she would let us do this project with her.
Yeah.
And we asked my oldest brother
Yeah.
if he would allow us to do this project with his youngest daughter.
Okay.
And we did. And it was absolutely unbelievable.
You're filming it, right?
So we filmed the family members giving the blessing.
Right.
We wrote their words, put them in an album with beautiful portraits that we did of the subject. It is an incredible project. And like I said, I'm very proud of it. But the interesting thing is, we did it, we launched it. It was amazing. People were floored. And when the launch was done, we didn't feel this sense of, okay, we've done it. It was a sense of, you're not done yet.
There's more?
There's more.
I love that you responded that way, because Paul and I, so we actually, just set this up for you. Paul and I bought a fixer-upper a couple years ago, and it was a hot mess. But we were in the process of trying to build a studio, and we decided to work from home for a few years while we did that. And we just thought it was a great idea to buy this house that was a hot mess. And renovations would go quick, right?
Yeah, and
Clients
easy,
could come,
real
give it
smooth.
2 weeks. Yeah, right.
No
Oh my
problem.
God. That's a whole nother podcast. Okay. How not to murder your spouse working together and living in a fixer-upper. Anyway.
I might be able to relate to some of
There
that.
you go. Oh. So yeah, anyway. Paul and I decided that the reveal or the launch of this project was too special just to post on Facebook. It's just too important. So we invited about 50 to 75 people to our house. Disaster. I wish we have pictures. They exist of what it looked
It
like.
wasn't that bad.
Oh, I can't. There was a blue tarp on our roof.
Oh,
Yes, there was a blue tarp on
There was
covering a hole in the roof.
That
Yes.
sounds kind of bad, Paul.
Seriously. Seriously.
bad.
And that's one of many things that we're surrounding. But, we felt like that it just needed to be personal. And that was what we felt right about. So we have a back space and we brought them to our backyard. We have a planner, obviously from working in the wedding industry that we consider them family, and they helped us stage the house. We did it at night purposefully so we could light what looked okay and try to hide what didn't.
right. Of course.
And we invited these friends, family, and very special clients that were like family to come to this event. And we sent them invitations in the mail. We created them, printed them. They're beautiful. An evening of purpose is what the invitation said. They had no idea what they were coming for. No idea. And they still
you don't
came.
tell people again. You don't tell people beforehand.
They know. Right. Paul likes the element of surprise,
You get
right?
caught up, and all of a sudden you're in this web
Yeah.
of love and blessing, which
People-
can be more scary than any other kind of web. Like
Right.
that's the
That's
scariest
true.
one sometimes.
That is true.
People were like, what is Paul and Kristen doing? But I have to come.
Yeah, right.
So they came and they had no idea what they were there for. And it was decorated and it really turned out being lovely, all because of our planner.
Right.
We fed them and then we shared our hearts. We had a big screen behind us and we just stood and basically stood naked in front of a crowd and said, this is what we've done. And we don't know why we've done it. We just felt like we had to. And like Paul said, the response was overwhelming. Overwhelming. I mean, it affects people. And we're standing at the end of the night. Everybody is gone. Your tears are dried up. The hugs have been given. And there's so much more we could say about this event. But we're looking outside our door. It's a French door with windows. So we're standing, just looking out at the patio. The empty chairs and tables where everyone just was. And we just went, there's something more than this. It wasn't about this. We don't know what that is. But we had this overwhelming sense of we're just getting started.
Is that where you're at now? Like you don't know what else there is, but you know there's more and you're just getting started?
So that was last year. So it's been about a year.
It's been 1 year. That was December 2000.
Okay.
And
17.
so, we kind of shook our heads and said, all right, we're game. Let's keep figuring this out. And so kind of we just had this sense of we need to tell as many people as we can. This isn't
reserved for the people that are going to come to Footstone and pay for a blessing session.
Right.
Because that's just not okay.
Right. This is for everybody.
This is for everybody. And we feel burdened to give it. And we will give it in any way that we can. And I've always loved to write. I'm not a writer.
Yeah. But you love to write.
But I love to write. And I not only want to be able to give the blessing when I can, I want to tell and teach others how to give it.
Right.
Because remember, I'm the girl who sat in the room for the first time and thought, this is the craziest thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
How do you say those words? How do you think of those words?
Right. Right.
But it can be taught.
Yeah.
And you can learn how to look for those characteristics in others. It's a purposeful thing. It's changing your perspective on the person sitting across from you. I can teach people how to do that.
Right.
And so I started writing, and I'm really excited about it's the Footstone blog, and we have a disclaimer on it that's like, okay, this is 100% personal. So if you're a new client coming in, please know this is personal.
Right.
And will it always stay as a Footstone blog? Will we separate it one day? Maybe. That's been really important.
Where do people go to find it?
Just to footstonphotography.com, and there's a link that just says blog.
Right.
And you'll see my disclaimer.
Right.
That's like, please be okay with you're not just seeing, really pretty portraits of clients. Right. This is different, and just I hope you're okay that we're doing that.
Well, I think what you guys have done and are doing is significant. And I'm struck by the way that you're just kind of following where you're led. You call it faith or intuition or whatever people choose to call it, but you're doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, even if you don't quite understand it at the time.
No, we don't. I can tell you that.
Right? I see it in your face. But I applaud that. I think that's a fantastic quality in someone that's willing to do that, because it's a vulnerable position to be in, which is a lot of what this is about. Like you say, you stood up there naked in front of everybody, and of course you had clothes on, but
yes.
We did.
We did.
But in any case, you were open, right? You opened yourselves up. You were vulnerable in front of everybody to discuss something like this, and that takes a lot of courage, and I applaud you. And so, once again, where do people go? Footstonphotography.com.
Footstonphotography.com. I would love
page.
Go to the blog page, and at the very top, under my disclaimer,
right.
It says, if you're new to the blog, click here, because, and we shared this video with you.
Right.
There is a video that just shares the whole story.
Right. Right.
And
you should watch the video, y'all. You should watch it. It's a good one. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
I appreciate it. And I think everybody else will too. Have a great rest of the convention. And if you find yourselves at dinner tonight, I'll be excited to talk to you about whatever comes to you next year.
Right.
And see where you're at.
Well, and I can't let you close without saying out loud that your son's birthday.
Oh, that's right.
You said 2 days?
Thursday. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he turns 6.
So a few days.
We have an ottoman.
You have an ottoman.
He'll be sitting on it.
You have an ottoman.
Yeah, he will be. I'll be doing it.
Okay. Everybody
so,
heard
my wife
it.
and my daughter. It'll happen in 3 days from now.
Okay. That's what it's all about.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Jed.